Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are starting the last section of our first unit. The topic is transformations, and there's three types of them that we're going to take a look at today. First of all, what is a transformation? Transformation is simply a change in the position or size or shape of a figure. If you look at the part of the page with the two triangles there, you got a pre-image, triangle ABC, and it's mapped into, that's the way we say a transformation, mapped into an image A prime, B prime, C prime. So the little mark above the letter is called prime, and that's just the result of a transformation. So we're looking at three types of transformations today. They are reflection, rotation, and translation. Look at the first figure there. You got a reflection. So a reflection like in a mirror. So reflection is just simply a transformation across a line. So the line is like a mirror, where each point in the pre-image is the same distance from the corresponding point of the image, distance to that line. So if you look at that figure, A and A prime are the pre-image and the image. They're both the same distance from that vertical line. Likewise for B and B prime, they're both the same distance from that vertical line. And likewise for C and C prime, they are pre-image and image. They are both the same distance from that vertical line. So that's a reflection. It's also called a flip. The second type of transformation we're going to look at today is the rotation. So you see that figure in the middle there. A rotation is also called a turn, is when you have, for example, in this case, the blue pre-image is rotated about a point to end up with the red image. So D is mapped into D prime, E is mapped into E prime, F is mapped into F prime, and G is mapped into G prime, as well as all the other points on the pre-image get mapped into individual points in the image. But this time, all the points in the pre-image and their corresponding points in the image are the same distance from a point, not a line. So that would be point P there. So every point in the pre-image and its corresponding point in the image would be the same distance from a point, not from a line. That's how a rotation is different from a reflection. Okay, and the third type of transformation that we need to know today is the translation. That's probably the easiest one. It's also called a slide, and it's just a way to move a figure across the plane. So you're going to move all the points in the pre-image the same distance sideways and the same distance up to get the image. So in this case, J is mapped into J prime, M is mapped into M prime, L is mapped into L prime, and K is mapped into K prime, as well as all the other points on the pre-image are mapped into corresponding points in the image. So that's all we have. There is another type of transformation we'll look at later this year if we get to it, called a dilation, but it's not in this lesson. Okay, so using that, let's look at some examples here. Let's look at example number 1 here. It says identify the transformation, then use arrow notation to describe the transformation. So if you look at the blue triangle, triangle FEG, and then that's going to be the pre-image, and then the image is triangle F prime, E prime, G prime. You can see that if you would draw an imaginary line vertically between those two triangles, that would be a reflection. So a vertical line between the two figures would be the mirror line, and F prime would be the same distance to that mirror line as like E and E prime would be the same distance to that mirror line, as well as G and G prime. So every point on the pre-image and every point on the image would be the same distance from that vertical line. So that makes that a reflection. And you can see that that's noted by the notation triangle EFG is mapped into. So that arrow, that horizontal arrow you see there, means is mapped into triangle E prime, F prime, G prime. So there's an example of a reflection. Okay, let's take a look at example B here. So this time, if you look at the pre-image, that's the blue rectangle, it's UTSR. It's going to be mapped into the image U prime, T prime, S prime, R prime by way of a rotation. So if you can think of maybe a point that's kind of, I don't know if you can see my cursor at this point, but down here somewhere, where if you attached that pre-image to a string and it was bolted down, it was tacked down to your desk or whatever, it would be rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise, so that each of those pre-image points would fall upon their image points in the red rectangle. So there, each point in its pre-image in this particular drawing, each point in the pre-image and its corresponding point in the image are both the same distance from a point and not a line, and that distinguishes a rotation. So you can see that the way that that's written underneath the figure, and that quadrilateral RSTU is mapped into quadrilateral R prime S prime T prime U prime by way of a rotation. Okay, we have another one right here, 1A, and it says identify the transformation. That's a pretty easy one to see. So if you look at that, the blue pre-image, the rectangle MPON, is mapped into the red image, M prime, P prime, Q, O prime, N prime, I should say, by way of a translation. So every point in the blue pre-image is just moved to the right and moved down so that they land on the corresponding point in the image. So that's a pretty easy one to identify as a translation, and there's no little notation there, but you would say, if you had to write that out in notation, you would say that MNOP, quadrilateral MNOP, is mapped into, with that little arrow, quadrilateral M prime, N prime, O prime, P prime. So if you had to show that with notation. Okay, the last example I want to do with you to show transformations is with the coordinate system. So what you see on my screen now is, on the XY axes, a triangle ABC with coordinates given, and then the directions for this problem say to find the coordinates of the image of triangle ABC after the translation. Now look at that notation. You're going to have to get used to that notation. It's just kind of a fancy way of telling you what to do with that translation. It's saying put all the points from the pre-image ABC and move them all to the right 3 and down 4. You see the little formula there says x plus 3. That's telling you to move to the right 3 every point. Then you see the y minus 4 there. So then also move that point down 4. So I'm going to do that for 3 of these points. Of course, that would actually be true for every single point on that pre-image triangle ABC. But if we just get the vertices, that's going to be enough. We can draw that image and then find out where those points are. So if you take point A, let's say, and move that point 3 to the right and 4 down, I'm just going to count it off. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That point A prime right here is going to have coordinates of 2, negative 3. 2, negative 3. Now let's take that point B and also move it 3 to the right and 4 down. I'll count that off. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that point B prime, the image, is going to be right there, and it's going to have coordinates of 0, negative 1. So we got that. Now let's do that one more time with point C. So we're going to move point C to the right 3 and down 4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So right there, it's going to be point C prime. And it's going to have coordinates of negative 1, negative 4. And then we can go ahead and draw the triangle in there. So the red triangle is the image of the black triangle, which is the pre-image. And it underwent a translation in which every point on the pre-image got moved 3 to the right and 4 down, giving you a point on the image. So that's an example of a translation. Okay, so not too difficult today. Let me summarize a little bit with what we have to know in this lesson. First of all, these are types of transformations. And the first figure is going to be called the pre-image. It's going to undergo a transformation to get the image, in which case the image coordinates correspond to the pre-image coordinates, except on the image, they all have a little prime after them to show that that's the result of a transformation. There are 3 types of transformations. One is a reflection, in which every point in the pre-image and its corresponding point in the image are the same distance from a fixed line, when that's the line of reflection. That's the mirror line. So that's called a reflection, or it's also called a flip. The second type of transformation we had today was a rotation, in which each point on the pre-image and its corresponding point in the image is the same distance from a fixed point, not a fixed line, but fixed point. And that's called the center of the rotation. And that's also called a turn. Rotation is the more mathematical way to say that, though. And then the last type of transformation we had today was a translation. That's just when every point in the pre-image is moved in the same direction as to get the image. So we had a little notation that went with that. So the notation would tell you how many points to the right or left you have to move, as well as how many points up and down that you have to move to get the image. And so that's called a translation, and it's also referred to as a slide. So there you go. That's all I need to know about transformations at this point. So take a look at the homework, and good luck.